Like, can we please, you know, I'll build a Trump Tower in Damascus, like it, whatever you want. Okay. He did literally everything. And Israel still's like, well, you do have land that we want. As a Druze myself, gay, so not really, I guess. We are so easily influenced, it's disappointing. I mean, it's not even like, this is not about the Druze and their interest in like emancipation. The world is going to keep turning. Okay, the sun's going to come up every morning, and Israel's going to yet another country. Okay, they have to do it. If Israel doesn't bomb another neighboring country, they will literally explode. Do you want Israel to explode? It is really up. This is just a thing Israel has to do. Do you understand? Yeah. The only things that are certain in life are death, taxes, and Israel up a neighboring country. It has to happen. And yet, of course, because it has to happen, it happened again. Israel is striking Syria's capital, Damascus. Your latest YouTube thumbnail, Lex Shapiro hates Superman. Super woke sucks. That's funny. Yes. If Israel's hatred drops below 80%, it'll blow up. Yeah. You don't understand. You don't understand. Israel has to blow up neighboring countries. What the? You're being anti-Semitic. You are being anti-Semitic if you don't think Israel has to blow up other countries, okay? They have to.
We have some breaking news this morning. In Syria, there are some strikes by Israel because there were attacks in that northern...
Dude, this is so funny. This is so funny that they're just like trying to contextualize it immediately. And they're like, there were some attacks, I think. I don't know. Whatever. Israel's blowing up another country. If you ever say anything about it, you're anti-Semitic. Shut up.
Region, that northern border region, and Israel's not going to stand for it. Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, just a little bit ago at the State Department said, guys, maybe you want to back off, tamp it down a little bit. But this is a unfolding situation and some breaking news. And that's why Trey Yingst is going to join us from Tel Aviv for an update. Good morning, Trey.
Yeah, hey, Dana, good morning. All of these Israeli strikes taking place in response to violence that is erupting in the Suwayda province of southern Syria. There is a Druze population in southern Syria that is supported by the Israeli government. So when violence erupted there earlier this week, the Israelis began to carry out a series of airstrikes against Syrian government tanks that were approaching the city. There was concern that they would participate in the fighting that was being done between the Druze and a Syrian Sunni Bedouin tribe. Now, as this was erupting, there were warnings and conversations taking place with Israeli officials using back channels to speak with the Syrian government, telling them not to enter the Suwayda province because it could be a threat not only to Israel as these forces got closer to Israeli territory, but also to the Druze minority population there. Whenever the government forces continued forward,
Where have I heard this song and dance before? Using an ethnic minority and protecting an ethnic minority in the region as a reasoning for why you must bomb another country. I mean, this is just big nation shit, okay? Russia being like, we have to protect the ethnic Russians in Ukraine. America will be like, it's even more laughable. America will be like, oh, we love the Kurds. We need to help the Kurds develop a nation state. Oops, just kidding. We actually don't want to do that. We just want to Kurdish militias in the region against anyone that we feel is not fully on board and fully invested in what's going on with our agenda. And of course, Israel is using the Druze. Now, this doesn't mean that like all Druze people in like Syria are anti-HDS. It doesn't even mean that HDS is good. You know, I'm not a fan of the former Al-Qaeda leader turned into institution defender himself. Okay, but it is kind of crazy that Jelani is basically doing everything he can. The bizarre part of the story is that the case of Druze is primarily about other actors, not the government. Israel's using flimsy excuses of protecting ethnic minorities just to carve up southern Syria. The arrogance to tell a sovereign state that they can't deploy their own army in their own borders is just insane. Is it insane, or are you anti-Semitic? Is it insane, or is this Jew hatred? Okay, that's the question you must be asking yourself right now. And the answer always is you hate Israel and you hate Jewish people. That's probably the reason. Israel should be able to a sovereign country whenever they see fit by using flimsy excuses. Okay? Excuse me. Hello? Am Israel high? Calm down. It's for democracy. Now, this is an incredibly tough situation because, as I've explained over and over again, like, Syria is currently being picked apart by two American allies. From the northern side, you have Turkey and Turkish control. Turkey is a major player in this. Turkey played a major role in overthrowing Assad, right? And then Israel is coming in from the south. They both have ambitions of maintaining control over it. Turkey obviously is a regional power as well as Israel is, and they have their own ambitions. They have their own motivations here, and they're kind of at odds with one another, even though they're both America's lapdogs in the region. So I guess after spending years and years of defending ISIS-style forces in Syria, the Al-Nusra Front, for example, Israel has decided this is the one former Al-Qaeda guy that they do not like, in spite of the reality that Jolani has done everything in his power to basically be as servile as he possibly can be to Israel's interests. Okay, they're intercepting transfers to Hezbollah. They're literally, they're doing everything. Israel destroyed the Syrian military, okay? As soon as HTS came into power, they said, please, sir, please bomb all of our military equipment. It's okay. They didn't say shit. They literally have been running around, HTS has been running around being like, how much more can we do for you, sir? Okay? How much more can we do for you, Israel? We love you. Here's Charles Lister, who obviously I like to hear from when it's anything related not to Syria, but here he is talking about Syria. I won't go so far as to say he's a little bit in the tank for HTS. In 7 months, Israel's done the following in Syria: 987 air and artillery strikes, 421 ground incursions, 80 square kilometers of land. In response, the Syrian government has done 0 attacks, filed 2 UN Security Council complaints, seized 49 Hezbollah shipments headed to Lebanon. HTS also shuttered any sort of pro-Palestinian operation in Syria. There were still some nascent groups that were aligned or were directly that had like Palestinians in them in Syria. HTS shut them up, shut them down. Most Druze leadership in the city are with HTS on this. Israel is arming the Syrian version of Abu Shabab al-Hajri, except he already has more influence, so it's more devastating to do separation and stuff, so Israel can do divide and conquer and unleash division. Yeah, from what I understand, outside of all the Druze sects, there's like one guy that Israel is tapped in with. And of course, they're using that one group to be like, oh, you're attacking our big, beautiful Druze population, and we really care about them. And that's why we have to bomb you. Druze leader Walid Jumblat, Israel is using some Druze figures to stir unrest in Syria under the guise of protecting Druze communities. Classic shit, classic divide and conquer shit. And it's crazy because like, Jolani, also known as Zelensky, okay? He did everything. He shaved, he put the fatigues on, he put the suit and tie on. He was like, I am your most loyal servant, Western Empire. I will do everything for you. Like, can we please, I'll build a Trump Tower in Damascus, like whatever you want. Okay? He did literally everything. And Israel still is like, well, you do have land that we want. As a Druze myself, gay, so not really, I guess. We are so easily influenced, it's disappointing. It's not even like, this is not about the Druze and their interest in like emancipation or anything like that. Okay, please. Like, America's involvement with the Kurdish militias does not have like a real emancipatory goal. They just want to use the Kurds, and then they will literally write them off instantly and will tell the Turks to do whatever the f they want in Kurdish villages. Saying it's land that Israel wants is anti-Semitic. They have a right to it. You're right. It's greater Israel, So, and they already have given land, for the record. They have already given land to Israel. Like, Israel is already occupying Syrian territory beyond Golan Heights. Ironically, where Zelensky is from. Houthi official on the idea of Damascus. We do not distribute baklava to gloat over those who gloated over our, for our compass is firmly set towards the true enemy of the nation, Israel. Toward it, we direct our missiles to strike its depths and shatter its expansionist delusions. So, yeah, what happened is, and I gave you guys like, I gave you guys a more in-depth analysis on this, but like the Syrian civil war is incredibly complicated in some ways. Because like it's incredibly complicated, but like almost every single faction, with the exception of Assad, Russia, and Iran, and obviously the IRGC plus Hezbollah, every single side in the Syrian civil war, except for these four that I'm mentioning, is in some way, shape, or form tied back to America, either by way of Israel or directly, you know, ISIS and ISIS-style groups in the region, or Turkey. Okay, which is America's NATO ally and has played a very important role in the destabilization of Syria, and then also the overtaking of the thwarting of the Assad government. So basically, Assad is also tied by way of Tulsi Gabbard. Okay, that's, I mean, I guess kind of. Assad does have American government involvement as well, technically, if you think about Tulsi Gabbard and her role in this, but ultimately it's a conflict where like America has basically funded all sides, including warring factions, right? Because on the one hand, America, by way of the CIA, and has directly offered logistical help and you know, to the Kurdish militias in Rojava, right? And those guys have been directly in conflict with the Turkish mobilization in Syria. The Free Syrian Army, backed by the Turkish government, that gets training from the Turkish government, NATO ally, remember, is a brigade, is basically like a Salafist militias from all around the world, from Turkic nations all the way to Xinjiang, right? They have Uyghurs in there as well. If you ever see like a Chinese dude throwing up the Allahu Akbar, just know that that's like a Turkish-backed militia group. Some of them will then join ISIS as well. It's really interesting. But regardless, like you have an eclectic group of what you would consider like what Americans think are like jihadis that are under the banner of the Turkish mobilization in Syria, and those guys are constantly fighting with the Kurdish militias as well, because Turkey wants to wipe out and maintain control over any sort of Kurdish territory in Syria. That's their national security concern. So, like, they're literally fighting amongst themselves, but both sides are funded by America. Both sides are being trained by America, either by way of Turkey or directly being trained by the United States of America. So then you have that. And on the other hand, you have obviously ISIS, which is, this terror cell that seemingly never attacks Israel and only kills Muslims, weirdly enough. Okay, don't know what that's about. I'm not going to point any fingers here. Has the American forces actually defended ISIS at times? Yes. Has Israel defended ISIS at times in Syria? Yes, they have. But they also fight ISIS all the time. Not Israel. Israel doesn't fight ISIS. They've apologized for killing ISIS soldiers on accident. But the American government will use the Kurdish militias to fight against ISIS in Syria. So then you have that. Okay, but how do you explain the discrepancy in how you always rightfully compartmentalize Hezbollah's horrific slaughters of Syrian children versus their participation in the acts of resistance against Israel, and understandably never care to mention the many crimes before every statement involving them, but you always seem so obsessively to do that with Jelani? You have said that you are not pro-Assad, but I'm not sure you are anti-Assad at this point. I'm anti-Israel, unconditionally, which is precisely the reason why I will explain Hezbollah's military actions in Syria and then simultaneously still say that like Hezbollah is a militant group that now has a party in the Lebanese parliament that was created as a defensive posture for the Shia population in Lebanon, but also primarily the only military formation against Israel in Lebanon. So that's the reason why I don't have that same kind of, I have more of an interest in compartmentalizing Hezbollah as opposed to HTS or Jelani. But if you might have noticed, I'm not attacking Jelani all that much currently because despite the fact that Jelani has done everything to be a dog of the West, Israel is still up the bag for them. Part of the reason why Israel is, doing this, of course, is because this is against Turkish incursion in Syria. They don't want Turkey to have too much influence in Syria. Assad isn't Shia, by the way. He's Alawi. No, I know. I'm not. I didn't say he's Shia. Also, I'm Sunni. What are we talking about? I have no allegiance to the Shias by religion at all. I don't give a shit. So there are a lot of groups that did horrible shit in Syria that are now in charge, and they're openly stating that at least right now that they are on board with like Israel. They're on board with America. They just want like Syria to be able to develop, and Israel seemingly has different opinions. Israel seemingly does not think that is where this conflict should head. Israel has different ambitions here. In the past 24 hours, Israel's bombed scores of sites across Syria, reportedly including the Ministry of Defense, Army General Command, and the Presidential Palace. Now Israeli cabinet ministers are openly threatening to assassinate Syria's new leader, Al-Sharaa. Ben-Gvir says Israel must eliminate Syria's Sharaa over violence against the Druze. Since Assad's downfall, Israel hasn't just been relentlessly bombing what's left of Syria's military and strategic infrastructure, it's been steadily seizing territory, using the chaos to advance its long-standing ambitions. Assad's successor, Al-Sharaa, a former al-Qaeda and ISIS commander, rose to power through quiet coordination between Turkish, Gulf, and Western intelligence services. This is correct. Sina Tusi is right on this. He was repackaged from terrorist to politician with promises of economic backing and diplomatic legitimacy. And if you recall, when this happened, I told you I am not pro-Assad by any metric, okay? He was incredibly weak and incredibly cruel. Having said that, however, that people were desperate for change and they thought that this would bring that change that they wanted. I thought that this would lead to more instability. I thought that the American-backed forces here would probably have to play a role, would probably reinstate the same ethnic tensions in Syria, and the sectarian violence would most likely continue. And if it doesn't continue, they would do their very best to try to further attack Syria. I do find it somewhat interesting that Israel never really did this while Assad was in power. By the way, just pointing that out, kind of interesting that this was not like this level of incursion never took place when Assad was in power. So I wonder what that's about. Perhaps has a lot to do with his weakness as well. And Russia too, certainly. Never to this degree. Never to this degree. Never to this degree. They didn't want to mess with the line of Damascus. Or maybe the line of Damascus by way of Russia had communiques with the Israeli state to a certain degree. Perhaps. Just saying. Because Russia is also an interesting power player in this region. It's a regional actor, as you guys know, but it's also one that is deeply tied to Israel by way of population. There's a fuck ton of Russians in Israel. Vladimir Putin literally said, what did he say when Israel was striking Iran? He was like, striking back at Israel would be like striking back at Russia or something along those lines, where it's like there is a massive amount of Russians that have Israeli citizenship. Many oligarchs use Israel as a way. Many Russian oligarchs use Israel. All right, we're back. We're fine. We're back. We're fine. Okay, I'm on the internet again. My Ethernet is pooped. But we're back. Where were we? What a frustrating situation. None of this stuff needs to. Just today, a new setup will fix this, bro. We good? Yeah. What is this? I do believe it's the feds hacking you. This is called psychological terrorism. They know the stream effing is killing you. Yeah, I don't think so, man. I don't think that's the case. I don't think that is the case. I'll be honest with you. I think that the easiest to explain answer is probably the correct one, which is that my ISP sucks. There's probably some server issues on the Twitch side. There's some server issues on the IRL Toolkit side. It's just issues galore, but I'm able to keep pushing through it regardless, because I still want to offer you explanations on what's happening in the world. So the simplest explanation is the most plausible explanation. I forget what I was talking about. Oh, we were talking about Syria. My internet is just booty, bro. Yeah, I'm already on a separate connection at this point. So I'm already on a separate connection. There could be software issues. There could be hardware issues. There could be ISP issues. There could be issues on the Twitch side server. There could be issues on the Toolkit side server. Because I'm like, there are multiple points of failure on this in this process. It is I know I'm doing it out of my living room, but this is a professional production, so there's a lot happening. So who knows? Trump is live right now. Okay,
will be put behind bars for a very long time.
Well, we'll see. We'll get to the Trump shit in a second, but we're not going to do that right now.
Millions of families ravaged by this.
I'm not going to do Trump right now. You can bypass ISPs and take a direct ISP in exchange. You were saying Putin won't intervene in Israel and Russian oligarchs do something in Israel. Yeah, as I was saying. Russian oligarchs use Israel as a way to park their assets and as a way to like enter the global marketplace and be able to travel freely with their Israeli passports. Russian is the third most popular language in Israel after English and Hebrew. It is, and that's not a mistake. Yeah, here's Putin quote on Israel being considered a Russian-speaking country, which I won't be able to go to because the Times of Israel won't let me enter their website for some reason. I don't know if I've been like IP banned from Times of Israel or not. I don't know what that's about, but you're the only top streamer I've ever seen with this many internet issues. Yeah, just wait right on cue. I'm sure my my alerts box will break and you'll see the gray bars again too. But yeah, I literally at timesofisrael.com. I don't know what it is. Trump might be about to announce the Gaza ceasefire. I doubt it. But in any case, yeah, here's the same quote from TASS. Putin points to Israel's huge Russian-speaking demographic. Okay. The Russian leader also noted that Russia has traditionally friendly allied relationships with the Arab and Islamic world. Israel is almost a Russian-speaking country, and Moscow takes this into account, Russian President Vladimir Putin said at the plenary session at the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum. Kaya's groomer appointment is here as well. But anyway, let's continue.
Israelis decided to launch a series of airstrikes today against the Syrian capital of Damascus, targeting not only military headquarters in the capital, but also a position within the presidential compound, right next to the presidential palace. Now, we do know that the U.S. Special Envoy to Syria, Tom Barak, has issued a statement condemning the violence against civilians in southern Syria and urging de-escalation. He praised the Syrian government for putting out a similar statement condemning the violence, but indicated their actions and words needed to match. The key here is that the Israelis want the Syrian government to ensure that the situation de-escalates and that the Druze population is protected. At this point, based on the videos that have circulated online over the past 48 hours, the Druze population is not being protected, and that is the reason that you saw these Israeli strikes earlier today. But again, the latest information that we have, the Israeli Air Force has conducted a series of airstrikes against positions in the Syrian capital of Damascus, targeting government-linked positions there.
All right,
Dana.
Trey Yingst, thank you for that breaking news development. We'll keep everyone posted.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch.
Yeah, it's spa day for Kaya right now. All right, Israel carries out fresh strikes on Syrian capital. State media reports.
The Syrian capital is being hit, and state TV says Israel is responsible. It is 4 p.m. in Damascus. It is 5 p.m. here in Abu Dhabi's CNN Middle East programming headquarters. I'm Becca Connect the World. Let's get straight to the very latest inside Syria. And the capital, Damascus, being hit by a series of airstrikes. State media blaming Israel, and the Israeli defense minister shared video of the attack saying, quote, "The painful blows have begun." Well, earlier today, Israel said it has struck the entrance to the headquarters of the Syrian armed forces in the capital. Now, this is what we know.
Why did they do this? Because they're bored, bro. Okay? Do you understand? Because they're bored. That's why they did it. What reason do they need? Because, I mean, they want more control over Syria. They want more control over Syrian territory. And they are using the Druze population, or at least one sect of the Druze population, for instability in the region. Hasan, you have just not been fully transparent and evaded saying if you're explicitly anti-Assad. If you're not anti-Assad, it's fine as long as you explain your position on why you aren't. Do you think he ought to have remained in power to be a net positive considering his supply lines despite his cruelty? I'm a Stalinist, so I would understand the necessity of state violence and war, but Assad doesn't fill the criteria. He was just a criminal. No, dog. I have explicitly stated that. Why the f do you keep bringing this up? Shut the up, dude. Shut the up. God damn. Dwindling loser is right. Jesus, Lord mercy. He's like, I'm a Stalinist. And it feels like you're pro-Assad. God damn. One of the worst aspects of Twitch streaming is like you constantly have to be in contact with the most maladjusted losers that are just like presenting themselves as earnest people with real questions, you know? Shut the up. And it's literally the same principle behind like Zoran having to constantly answer on whether he wants to kill every Jewish person or not. It's like he's never said anything even remotely anti-Semitic. God damn. And he has answered it. And it's like the 500th time that you have to answer it, you're going to like, you know, you're going to inevitably say something that they can just like clip out of context and be like, see?
On Tuesday, Syrian government forces were sent to the Druze stronghold of Suwayda in the south of...
Yeah, it's like how I always have to preface invasion of Ukraine with unjustifiable. I know. And it doesn't matter. These people still are so dense that they think I'm like pro-Russia invading Ukraine. Holy...
For Syria, after days of sectarian violence there between the Druze and Bedouin tribes. In response, Israel, which has vowed to protect the Druze community, began launching strikes on the Syrian forces advancing towards Suwayda. CNN's Jeremy Diamond is in Jerusalem. Salma Abdelaziz joins us live from London. Jeremy, let me start with you. What do we know about what is happening right now in Damascus? We do have live pictures of the capital that we can bring up as you are speaking.
Yeah, well, as we have seen, the Israeli military has been carrying out airstrikes in the Syrian capital of Damascus. We know of at least one strike at the entrance to Syria's military headquarters there. 2 civilians were injured as a result of that strike, according to Syrian state TV. We have also seen several other strikes in Damascus, some of which we are still working to confirm the exact location of them. But there have been reports of strikes near the defense ministry as well as near the presidential palace. But what we are watching here on the Israeli side of the border is really quite stunning, Becky, and that is that we are seeing Druze individuals in...
Yeah, also, this is the other reason. Reminder, Israel sees any intra-Syrian reconciliation and unity agreements between the government and Druze or Kurds as a severe blow to Israel. Israel wants Syria to be intractably divided, failed state. Israel is only weaponizing the issue of Syrian minorities to achieve this aim. Also, it's you know, the timing of it is because there's Benjamin Netanyahu's coalition is like dwindling, and on top of that, they keep pushing back his trial. So like all of that unites under this banner where Israel will consistently bomb another country to be like, well, we're in war. You can't put me. You can't. I'm a wartime president. You can't do a trial for me. How dare you? Source, the articles from last March when the Syrian government signed an agreement with Druze leaders in Suwayda. Israel immediately declared this a severe blow to Israel and did everything possible to blow up the deal and undermine Syrian unity. There's also another concern here because like Syria is basically piecemeal, partially controlled by Israeli interests, partially controlled by Turkish interests. And of course, both of those are under the banner of American interests. And therefore, this is 2 different factions that want more control over Syria. Israel saying like, no, it's our country, and Turkey saying, no, it's our country. We get to control it. It's America's 2 different attack dogs in the region having a little bit of a conflict over Syrian territory, which is no longer a sovereign state. Okay, and yeah, that's what's going on. Bro, Hasan, the problem is acting like one evil left another can, but that's just not the case. Assad is infinitely worse than Jolani. The division and sectarianism that will come to Syria as a result of Jolani is much better issue to have to unjustify murder of hundreds of thousands over decades. That's why the whole country was happy when Jolani won, except the Alawites, to be honest. This is precisely why I said we wait. We sit and we wait, but I'm not holding out hope, okay? Because you're describing an American puppet who is still getting brutalized by America's other vassal states in the region, as you are seeing right now. Okay? That's it. That person is not a Fed. He's just a Sunni Muslim in the region, maybe a Sunni Syrian refugee. Okay? They want to turn Syria into Libya. That's what they want to do. Don't compare us with Israel. What the fuck is wrong with you? What do you mean? Us as in like the United States of America with Israel? We are Israel. Israel is us. Israel is an extension of American interest in the region. What the fuck are you talking about? Are you crazy? Oh, you mean Turkey? Oh my God, the Turkish cope is so strong in the chat sometimes. Turkey is different, bro. It's different. I swear, bro. Really? Is different? We got American nukes in Incirlik. What are you talking about? We're a NATO country. Get the fuck out of here. We're not as like slammed in the ass cheeks of America as Israel is. You know, Erdogan does stray away from American interests, at least for a short period of time. But that offers it protective cover to make side deals with like Russia and China from time to time. But those side deals only offer comfort to Russia. And then look what Erdogan did in Syria. Sözlükte İsrail'i savunuyorlar, İslamistlerle savaşıyorlar diye. Ama manyak hepsi. Bırak Allah'ına. Al birini vur ötekini amına koyayım.
Israel, either Israeli Druze or Syrian Druze who live in the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights, attempting to cross into Syria to try and help their fellow Druze brothers in Syria who have been under attack in the city of Suwayda. And we are seeing hundreds of these Druze individuals crossing the Israeli border fence into the Israeli-controlled buffer zone inside of Syria, trying to make their way to presumably that city of Suwayda. It has been an extraordinary scene to witness these hundreds of people who have broken across this guarded border fence. We have seen the Israeli military out deploying tear gas to try and get these individuals, many of whom are Israeli citizens, back onto the other side of the border. The Israeli Prime Minister has addressed the matter directly, saying that the situation in Suwayda, that southern city with a very heavy Druze population, calling that situation very serious, but saying that he has one request for the Druze population in Israel, and that is, quote, do not cross the border. He maintained that the Israeli military is carrying out actions, and indeed we have heard from the Israeli Defense Minister, Israel Katz, who said that
Israeli Druze member of Knesset crossed the fence as well. He claims he went inside to convince the others to go back. At least 1,000 Druze from Israel and the occupied Golan have crossed the fence with the stated intention of joining the fight against Suwayda. Some of them are armed. Incredible. Is this a rare situation where the Druze actually like Israel? Some are being used. Okay. They're all being used. Every single person here that is like... Minister of Knesset Afif Abed from Likud, who crossed the border into Syria in a conversation with Khan News. We entered without security and our own initiative to rescue the Israeli Druze and protect their lives. Incredible. The Druze, some of the Druze factions here are basically like the Kurdish factions that America uses from time to time. They don't ultimately give a shit about the Druze population. They're just using the Druze population to be like, see, we are the protectors of the Druze population here. That's it. The Druze population is an ethnic minority that is in occupied Israeli territory and also in Syria as well. Is a religious. It's like a religious minority, and they serve. Some of them serve in the IDF too. America always uses Kurds and arm them just to drop them later on. Same story every time. Yeah, and it's like they're still second-class citizens because they're not Jewish, but it doesn't matter. Israeli Druze who are active Israeli occupying force are turncoats. Kamal Jumblat literally fought for the Palestinian cause and died. Important to note that they want to support the Israeli-backed drug gangs of the Druze warlord Hikamet al-Hijri, who, mind you, has barely any public support. They want to help their Druze brothers. Many literally have families there. They're not crossing for any warlord. At least 1,000 Druze from Israel and the occupied Golan have crossed the fence with the stated intention of joining the fight against Suwayda. Some of them are armed. What does Israel gain from quote-unquote protecting the Druze? They make it seem as though they have real ambitions, like a moral goal in further destabilizing Syria. But yeah, remember, what a coincidence. Israel starts another unprovoked assault on the day of Netanyahu's trial and a day before his government was about to collapse because of his ultra-Orthodox partners were ready to leave the ruling coalition. Last month it was Iran, now Syria, all thanks to free U.S. military supplies. Hell yeah. Fantastic.
Will intensify its attacks on government forces if they do not withdraw from Suwayda. And indeed, in addition to the strikes that we've seen in the Syrian capital of Damascus, there have also been Israeli strikes in and near Suwayda, including strikes on tanks and other heavy equipment, trucks carrying machine guns, according to the Israeli military, that they say were headed toward that city of Suwayda. Becky?
I'm going to come back to you. Stand by. I just want to get Selma up at this point. You've done a lot of reporting and producing from Syria. What do we understand to be happening in the south, in Suwayda, at present on the ground? We are seeing strikes, and we understand and we are reporting on heavy fighting there. Just explain what we understand to be going on.
Yes, so absolutely the flashpoint of Suwayda, which is a stronghold for this Druze community. They are a minority group, but they are a majority in this city. And that is where these clashes broke out over the weekend between Bedouin tribes and this Druze community. Now, we have images to show you of what that outbreak of violence looks like on the ground. Gunfire on the streets, armored vehicles, terrified families, as you can imagine. And with that outbreak of violence over the weekend, dozens of people were killed. That's what prompted the Syrian government.
Which citizenship have the Druze? The Druze in Israel have Israeli citizenship, and the Druze in Syria have Syrian citizenship. I'm Lebanese Druze, and we don't think of Israeli Druze as real Druze. We've been targeted in Israel in the Lebanese civil war by Syrian Shia Muslims native to Lebanon and the Phalanges Christians during that time. Nothing against those religious sects other than the Phalanges. That's just how things went down. My parents lived through those times and told us about it. And then, yeah, the Druze in Lebanon are Lebanese. And that's whatever nation that they are a part of, that's their nationality. It's interesting, though, because the Golani Druze have rejected at least a big chunk of the Druze, Syrian Druze population that's living in Golan Heights, that is occupied Israeli territory that Donald Trump in his first term officially recognized the annexation of, indirect a violation of international law. The Druze there, some of which actually died in the Hezbollah strikes, if you remember, because Israel loves using them as like a talking point. The Druze there are anti-Israel, but there are plenty of Druze that live in Israel proper that are super pro-Israel and fight in the Israeli occupying forces. And despite their second-class citizenship status, they still ride for Israel pretty hard. I don't know the exact the exact background of the Israeli Druze that like crossed the border here into occupied Syrian, into the Syrian territory that is currently occupied by Israel. But it's a weird set of circumstances because like there's still nascent factions within the Syrian state that are Salafist brigades and they're still in operation, and they do get riled up and engage in sectarian violence against different factions. Like the Alawites got slaughtered pretty aggressively in the interim period when HDS was trying to put together some kind of coalition to build like whatever the skeleton would look like for a Syrian state. And then and now is the Druze population, because there's many different ethnic and religious minorities that live in Syria, just like in Lebanon. This is all the grand design of British and French colonial occupation. It is deliberate. The way that these country lines, national territories have been drawn is deliberately incredibly diverse. So they use, yeah. But I guess the American government is mad, kind of. I don't know how really mad they are, but
on Syria.
Yes.
What is it that the U.S. is hoping to see in the next few hours?
Well,
the U.S. is calling on the Syrian government to, in fact, withdraw their military from southern Syria in order to enable all sides to de-escalate and find a path forward. The State Department spokesperson refused to say whether the U.S. has asked Israel to halt the strikes.
certainly an end to the conflict, an end to...
Bro, like being in the vicinity of Israel is like being stuck in a room with like a serial rapist with a gun. You have nothing. The serial rapist has a gun. They're going to do whatever it wants to, every single person in the region. And there's nothing you can do. And if you ever like strike back, if you ever say that you don't want this, then America comes in, okay, and says, no. They get to do whatever they want to you. Shut the up. Stand down. It is crazy. It's crazy. Israel's like, oh, we have a greater ambition for our greater Israeli project, and some of that is Syrian territory. And then they just like blow up Damascus. And then America turns around and says, hey, they're doing the right thing by blowing up Damascus. You should shut them up.
The nature of the violence that is happening, an Israeli withdrawal, a Syrian government withdrawal from the area as well.
And has the U.S. asked Israel Syria?
I cannot speak to specific conversations or the exchanges diplomatically, but I can say that, let me see, there's a few things that might give us a sense here of what's happening. We are calling on the Syrian government to, in fact, withdraw their military in order to enable all sides to de-escalate and find a path forward. And I think that that's obviously the goal because of the nature of what's happened and the Secretary's phrasing that this was a misunderstanding. He's optimistic that this can be achieved.
Sina, let's do more of the... Assad's successor Al-Sharaa, former Al-Qaeda and ISIS commander, rose to power through quiet coordination between Turkish Gulf and Western intelligence services. This is true. He was repackaged from terrorist to politician with promises of economic backing and diplomatic legitimacy. He was literally presented as like a part of the Gulf, the Abraham Accords. He was like supposed to be the new face of the Abraham Accords. This is real. They literally had posters with Benjamin Netanyahu's face alongside all the Gulf leaders and even Jolani in those posters. They were like, this is our big, beautiful new umbrella of alliance that will stabilize the region. Over the past 6 months, Al-Sharaa and his forces have struggled to govern and coexist with Syria's multi-ethnic and multi-religious society. Their record includes brutal attacks on Alawites, Christians, and Druze, expulsions of religious minorities, suppression of dissenting Sunnis. Now, the problem here is, part of that is because these guys are not like a legitimate government, and they haven't been able to put together a legitimate government, and that I think their new design for what Syrian democracy in air quotes was going to look like was basically just like a fake, not like a real election. And another part of the problem here is that because of their lack of legitimacy, but backing from the American state and other regional actors, specifically Turkey, it doesn't matter that they don't have like a real. It doesn't matter that they don't have like real popular support and popular mobilization. The only thing that people were on board with was no more Assad, right? But the Syrian population understandably want to have elections. And regardless of Assad's illegitimate reign over Syria and its fake elections, okay, the reality of the matter is they still have ballots. Like Syria still has a functioning electoral system. They could use it, but these guys don't want to use it, okay? HDS was supposed to be like a temporary arrangement, and then it was going to turn into a real, robust Syrian democracy. Of course, that'll never happen, obviously, because a real, robust Syrian democracy could spell instability for Syria, for Israel and also Turkey's ambitions in the country, okay? Yet efforts to legitimize Al-Sharaa pressed on, culminating in his meeting with Trump in Riyadh. The prospect of sanctions relief gave Syrians a sliver of hope, but that hope is vanishing as Israel's relentless bombing is gutting the state he hoped to rule. The key question now is what Turkey and Qatar will do. Erdogan once spoke of praying in the Umayyad Mosque, and the Qatari emir stood with Al-Sharaa on Mount Qasyan in January. But with Al-Sharaa under siege, will they do anything to save him? Because remember, these guys like Al-Sharaa, Jolani, Zelensky, whatever you want to call him, Jolensky, whatever you want to call him, is Turkey's guy. Like Turkey is, very quickly seized on the opportunity. Turkey has a shit ton of Sunni Syrian supporters, and there is already like internal pressure from the Turkish public to to send back the Syrians to Syria. Many of the Syrians also want to go back to Syria, understandably. So, because, you know, they want a stable Syria that they can return to. And so that seemingly is not in the cards for Israel. After Assad's fall, Turkey's foreign minister called it a lesson for Iran. Now Al-Sharaa, backed by Ankara, may not last a year, while Assad, with Iranian and Russian support, brutally held on for 14 years after the uprising. Okay. I believe that this is Hakan Fidan, Turkey's foreign minister. I believe that Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates, Egypt, Qatar, Egypt, and Jordan can come together and take very serious steps to solve critical problems in the region. We've started to do so with a meeting in Aqaba. The important thing here is that the states are sincere. The strategic takeaways now, one surely weighing in on the minds of many regional leaders and longtime U.S. allies, is this: the consequences of trusting Israel in the U.S. can be disastrous. Syria is fast becoming a cautionary tale in that regard. You have to remember, like, they want, Americans in Israel don't care about stability, safety, and security for the civilian populations in any of these countries. As a matter of fact, it goes against their ambition in the region. Turkey, to a certain degree, at least, I would say, Turkey, to a certain degree, cares about stability as far as they can manipulate the existing Syrian leaders, where they would rather have their guy in charge. Whereas with Israel, they don't give a shit because they're not going to take any of the refugees. At least Turkey, by way of its national security concerns in the northern Syrian corridor, and by way of like a refugee crisis that they take ownership over, have a real interest in making sure that at least Syria is like somewhat stable. Israel doesn't have that interest at all. Israel just wants to pick up the bag. Whether they have a puppet state, which they kind of have with Jolani already, by way of America, because Jolani is America's guy and Turkey's guy, or they have complete destabilization, doesn't matter. They will blow shit up and they will take over more territory, and ultimately that plays a role in their ambitions. I get it. There's a little F. Just 3 days ago, Syria signs an $800 million Tartus port deal with UAE firm DP World for a 30-year contract, the same governmental company that's waging genocide in Sudan, to protect their assets in the Sudan port. If Turkey truly sees Al-Shara's government as worth defending, the question is whether Erdogan will respond in any meaningful way. Will he cut trade ties or halt energy shipments to Israel? So far, Ankara's rhetoric hasn't matched his actions. He's not going to do that. The best Erdogan could do in this process is basically go back to America and beg them to rein Israel in. Because Erdogan's goal here, regardless of his own personal motivations, regardless of his own personal response to like internal conflict in Turkey with respect to Syrian refugees going back to Syria, and his interest in having control over a now stable Syria that is aligned directly with Ankara, he can't do shit about it because he's America's lapdog. Okay? There's nothing he can do about it. Israel's goals in Syria are no mystery. Establish a corridor to Iraqi Kurdistan border, fragment the country through its allies among Druze and Kurds, inch closer to the old vision of a greater Israel in a new Middle East, arguably more improvisation than strategy. Every outlet is framing this as Israel's trying to prevent a genocide of the Druze. It's insane. Of course they're doing that because that's what Israel's claim is, and that's precisely the reason why every American outlet is going to cover it as such. Okay? The other thing that is a problem here with the instability and the lack of legitimate popular support for Jolani is that he has no control over whatever kind of factional war that exists, whatever kind of paramilitary groups that still are in operation inside of Syrian borders. When you don't have a stable nation state with real functioning democracy and no military because Israel blew up all of your anti-air defense systems and all of your air force, which they did shortly after HTS took power, you don't have a real functioning state. And when you don't have a real functioning state, you have no control over the paramilitary factions that might come back into action and start slaughtering Druze populations. And then Israel can claim that they're protecting the Druze and by bombing Damascus.
government to send forces to southern Syria. It says, the Syrian government says, in an attempt to quell the unrest, to calm what you're hearing and you're seeing there on your screen. But Israel's response, Israel's intervention in
labeling Ahmed al-Harara as an American asset is baseless conspiracy theory that distracts from the real sacrifices made by activists on the ground. What? Stop it. You're right, man. He is a reformist. My mistake, big dog. The former Al-Qaeda, the former Al-Qaeda leader is actually, he's not an American asset. He's not. He's reformed. He's real. Al-Sharaa has basically only been successful in consolidating power in central Syria, in and around Damascus, homes in the big central cities. In the periphery, they haven't made much headway because of local militias controlling territory. Yes, and you can't bring all of these different factions together on the table, especially if you were warring with them and you don't even have the military power to be able to do so. And some of those factions are geared up by, or some of those factions were basically used as like stay behind networks by the American state, and will actively, will decide to do things on their own now. Okay. They got the logistics, they got the support, they got the backing, they got the equipment, and now they got their own ambitions. So good luck. This is why I said, no matter who comes into charge in Syria, Syria is still very much, this does not mean that Assad was good or like a hero to the Palestinian cause. I think Assad's cruelty and even his reliance on him turning basically Syria into a logistical hub between Iran and Lebanon was also, all of those factors, and even him like relying on Russian support, was all born out of his weakness. Just like his cruelty was born out of his weakness. He was weak and maybe was even involved with Israeli affairs as well. So the shred of stability that incredibly cruel regime presented, as opposed to the instability of this current administration, is just jumping out of a vat of shit into a toxic chemical pit, pretty much. It's just like there's no salvation here.
What is a domestic affair has, of course, fueled on this fire. The Syrian government's push to try to assuage the clashes in that area as part of a wider effort, Becky, of course, to try to end
There's also this as well. No shot the fighters for HTS Syrian military are okay with being Israel's dog and getting bombed constantly. Jolani will be overthrown just like Assad. There's also that as well. Because like the reality of the matter is, the more Israel gets to do some shit, okay, the less stable Jolani's already unstable coalition is. His limited coalition falls apart when people go, dude, what the you were supposed to put a suit and tie on and take away our sanctions so we could like rebuild the country and then maybe sometime in the future have an attempt towards democracy. Okay, like there's a lot of there was a lot of copium from a lot of people, even in my chat, even in my community. Understandable copium, some hopium from people that thought like, oh no, you don't understand. Like the reason why Jelani has to say he's like pro-Israel is because he doesn't want to be bombed. It's like, okay, well, Israel hasn't stopped bombing Syria. So what the f does that mean? Like, it's understandable that people in these dire situations that have seen like that have been displaced, that have seen their family members get slaughtered or family members get like tortured in prison, would think like, okay, this time it'll be different. I hope maybe good things are possible. That's why I said we can only wait to see what happens. But all of this wheeling and dealing from Al-Sharaa or Jelani, whatever you want to call him, has not led to Israel standing down and allowing them to like try to even form a government, because that is not in the cards. Israel doesn't want that. Israel likes it being incredibly unstable.
Sectarian violence in the country. That looks very much like a situation that the country does not have a grasp on, and it makes it ever more difficult for government forces to reestablish control in an area when Israeli forces say they have no right to be there. Israel has declared a unilateral demilitarized zone in this part of Syria, something the Syrian government says it does not agree to. It is calling on Israel to stop. It is accusing Israel of violating its sovereignty. So you have a tinderbox here, Becky, with foreign intervention from Israel very much exacerbating that situation on the ground. And you heard from my colleague Jeremy as well, more individuals as well potentially going into Syria and adding to that chaos.
Yeah, and I want to be absolutely clear, Jeremy, I'm going to bring you back in, that we are getting reports of barbaric.
Real strong guy. Had a big bounty on you the other day. Big bounty. No longer do I have a bounty on you. Handsome guy, big beard. He's like Zelensky, but also tall and handsome. He's like my Zelensky. The Syrian government has two modes that it can never deviate from: massacring minorities and capitulating to Israel. This is a constant cycle that can only lead towards the collapse of the state.
Attacks on the population in Suwayda, and we will get more reporting on that as we move through the next couple of hours. Let's just be quite clear about this. Why are the Israelis...
Dude, look, the Syrian army has begun their withdrawal from Suwayda governorate of southern Syria tonight as a part of the agreement brokered by the United States between Druze, Israel, and Syria. Under the agreement, it appears that security forces under the Syrian Interior Ministry will remain in Suwayda. But not the Syrian army. They're pulling back the Syrian army. Once again, the HDS forces are or the current Syrian military under the leadership of Jalani is once again capitulating to Israel, which, as we know, Israel's not going to stop. Israel has never stopped until it is forced to.
Israelis getting involved, and why have they vowed to protect the Druze community?
Well, the Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar kind of laid it out this morning, saying that there are two primary reasons for Israel intervening in Syria. The first of which, he said, is that Israel is trying to protect itself, that it does not want to allow certain armed elements along its border in that southern part of Syria. So there is a national security interest, they say. The second element, though, which seems to be the most salient one at this moment, is that they say that they have an interest in protecting.
Excuse me, Israel has a right to defend itself by taking over more territory in a sovereign state, Syria. Excuse me. Hello? What do you mean? What, did you think that anything different was going to take place? This is, in my opinion, remember when I told you that it's Israel that's holding the wheel now? Like, Israel is playing a much more important role in the grand design for American imperialism in the region. This is a byproduct of that, because I suspect in the past, if they wanted to ensure stability, like actual stability in Syria in a way that benefits both Israel in the long run and also America's interest in the long run, they would just pack this up and they would tell Israel to stand down. Okay, they would tell Israel to stand down. Let Syria become this new like HTS-backed government, and let Turkey have a lot more control over what happens in Syrian affairs, because ultimately Turkey is also America's as actor here. But it doesn't work like that any longer. Now Israel gets to drive the car, and this is the outcome. Israel could end the war in Gaza, sit and talk with Syria and Saudi Arabia, and even manage its issues with Turkey through direct channels it already has. But Netanyahu chooses to distract his public from the corruption trial by keeping Israel in perpetual war. I mean, it's not just that. It's not just that. It's also because, like, this is a direct strike against, like, Turkish involvement in the region as well. Yeah, Ragıp Soylu, no, I mean, all disrespect, I guess, is a little bit of a Erdogan lackey. Let's be real.
protecting the minority Druze community in Syria, citing strong bonds that Israel has with the Druze community. And what's important to also understand is that the Druze community is not a monolith. First of all, the Druze are a religion. They live in Syria, they live in Israel, they live in Lebanon as well. And there are very much differences, not only between the Syrian Druze and the Israeli Druze, the Lebanese Druze, but also within the Syrian Druze community itself. There are several prominent clerics within the Syrian Druze community, one of whom has very openly allied himself with Israel and has had communication with the spiritual leader of the Druze here in Israel. And there has been a constant back and forth there, including with that cleric requesting support and assistance from the Israelis. The Israeli Druze community here, as well as the Syrian Druze who live in the Golan Heights, some of whom have Israeli citizenship, but most of whom do not, they have, of course, a very, very strong affinity with the Syrian Druze community in Syria proper, and have felt extraordinarily concerned over the course of the last several months as they have witnessed attacks being carried out on that Druze community, especially in this city of Suwayda. We have seen Israeli Druze members of the military protesting at the border, saying that they want to go there and fight to defend their Syrian Druze brothers. The Israeli government, of course, carrying out these strikes, but also urging those Druze individuals in Israel not to cross the border, not to take matters into their own hands. But given some of the images that have been circulating here in Israeli media of some of the attacks that have been carried out on the Druze in Suwayda, as you can see, many individuals are feeling compelled to act on their own. And that is why we are seeing these scenes now of hundreds of people crossing into this buffer zone in Syria, which Israel controls, and trying ultimately to get all the way into Syria and to that city of Suwayda.
People